Up next on the Elevated Podcast.
I want to talk to those of us who have been, super busy, but have young families.
People just go and go and go. And I think it's such a huge detriment to a lot of children. They're not having time with their family.
It's been a blessed season, but yet it might have been some stresses in this season.
They're fighting, and I lose them.
And you've had little to no time to deal with you.
I'm learning to be more intentional.
As well as to be with your family.
We get this great idea that we're going to love the whole world and we're going to change the world, but then we forget our family.
You sense that the business is picking up, ministry is picking up, family and friends outside of your household pulling you often.
Sometimes things become overwhelming for us and it might be put on the back burner.
We're not going to always get it perfect.
I want to encourage people that might feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to think you have to be perfect at it.
Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and make a financial commitment to support us on Patreon. The link is in the description. What's good, Elevation Nation, and welcome to the Elevated Podcast, where we empower emerging leaders who are going after their it through personal development. I'm your host, Christian Johnson, here for the next couple of episodes with my beautiful best friend, the love of my life, my wife, Lanisha. How are you doing, beautiful?
I'm good. How are you?
I am wonderfully well and improving. All right, let's go. We are going to have a conversation today around the topic, how to prioritize quality time for you and your family. I'm talking about ensuring that we have meaningful and quality time together amidst busy schedules. Who's busy? Come on, somebody. A lot of us are, even as emerging leaders. And listen, our very special guest that we have with us today is going to help us navigate or elevate this conversation. And this guest that we have today, they're not strangers to us, but we did meet them through social media.
Yeah.
They also have done a broadcast with us before. All right. And so this couple has been married for 13 years. They have 3 beautiful children. They lead a house church together where the mission is to make one-on-one disciples and guide people into the fullness of Christ. They also run a thriving, somebody say thriving, a thriving photography business of the Vinluan photography based in Virginia Beach. You have to check out their work. It is beautiful. All right. But there's so much that we can say about this couple, and we can't tell it all. But let me tell you what I really admire, beautiful, and in Elevation Nation. I admire their devotion to their family, their household. Even when scheduling this podcast interview, they made it clear we guard our Monday nights. That's family time. That's family night. And at that moment, I was like, yes, God, this is exactly, you've affirmed the feeling and the thought. So Elevation Nation, please help us welcome to the Elevate It podcast, Jake and Jennifer. Welcome. How are you?
We're good.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us. It's such a joy to be on this podcast this morning, and we're just excited to have this conversation.
How you feeling, Jake?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Still waking up.
It's all right. We're going to go with this. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. So first and foremost, we like to ask a couple staple questions with all of our guests. And the first one is, what is your inner tugging? We really get this from Matthew 14, where Jesus is out on the water and there is a storm and the disciples are told to go to the other side. But there's a point in time where there's fear and there's terror that goes on. And Peter, out of all the leaders, Peter's the one that's like, look, if that's you, Lord, bid me to come. And Jesus says, come. So we have identified that as emerging leaders, as water walkers, there's something inside of us that tugs on our hearts and minds and says, look, even if it looks like it's this, even if it looks like it's terrifying, even if it appears to be a ghost, I'm sensing that if that's where you want me to go on the impossible, God, I'm going to operate from my inner tugging, from my compelling, and do what I need to do for kingdom advancement. So if you could briefly just share what your inner tugging, what your it is with us.
You wanna go? All right. No, it's
He's laughing over here. You might have a.
no, it's just you bring up that verse, and that is a verse that we reference quite often. Being uncomfortable outside of the boat. We're constantly, challenging the church around us to come outside of the boat and stop looking at the left, the right, what you're standing on. Obviously, you're standing on water, or the voices that make you turn around and go, a complete 360 or going backwards, right? Instead of keeping your eyes fixed on Jesus. And in this walk with Jesus, the tugging is to be uncomfortable.
Just along with the vein of the topic of this conversation for this podcast, a tugging of the heart for us, I think, is to love people. And sometimes loving people isn't always, I love you, I'm kind to you, I'm nice to you. Sometimes there's discipline in love. And even further in that vein of the tug of the heart to love is loving our family first. Loving our family first. I have a quote on my wall actually that I point at and reference a lot, because we get this great idea that we're going to love the whole world and we're going to change the world, but then we forget our family. But Mother Teresa actually said, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family first. And I think that's at the basis, of my heart, truly, as a mother. We can go out and we can counsel people, we can disciple people, and we can get our kids in activities, and we can have a really great photography business and all of these things, but we forgot that we have these hearts and these children that need us just as much as the next person. And so I think that even in some of that text that you sent and all of that in the vein of this conversation keeps me balanced. Am I pouring into my relationship with my husband? Do I keep that sacred? We have date night every Friday, and it's so important to me. I don't allow anything into that usually. It's very rare into that space. The same thing with our children. I fight for that sometimes, even with, not necessarily fighting him, but I'm saying we got to make sure that we're intentional about spending time with our children and doing these things.
Wonderful.
I hope I didn't jump ahead too far, but I think that's the tug of my heart.
No, that's good. So if I want to sum that up, and because we have a multitude of listeners as well. So we also share this one is, so we're Christians. And so you're going to get Jesus, but this isn't a Christian podcast, but we are Christians. So you're going to go ahead and get Jesus from that area and that aspect of it. So looking at that aspect of this and sharing the hear and the heart and the mind, you guys are hearing and watching and hearing pastors and leaders who are truly convinced pertaining to the conviction of Christianity and the heart and the mind pertaining to that space. And so here what they're saying, receive it, allow God to massage your heart and mind to hear the truth of what they're saying. But as far as their inner tugging and what I'm understanding and hearing is there's a compelling for truth. There's a compelling for them to identify truth and love and sharing that and doing it unapologetically. And that's something that we have to honor as well. And so at that tugging, looking at that area, say, look, I love you. And this is the truth. This is what I believe is truth. And this is what I'm going to share. And this is what I want to share with you. And this is what I'm going to release to you. And that's something that is needed in the earth realm, pertaining to that level of that integrity and that character. And it's through the area of truth. And me and Lanisha were listening to a podcast, and they were talking the difference between being being nice and kind.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, did you want to jump in on that one real quick?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that as Jake and Jen, as you were talking, because, when we talk about the realm of family, and then even beyond, when we talk about our church families or we talk about the communities that we're within, one of the toughest things is to have those hard conversations, right? But in the vein of love, they're necessary, because are you truly walking in love if you aren't speaking up? We were just having this conversation this morning with one another. If you're not speaking up about something that God is impressing upon your heart, and that's that inner tugging that we like to talk about, where God within us is saying, hey, you need to speak up on this. Hey, you need to love on this person. You need to embrace this person, whether it's your child, right? Your spouse, whether it's, like I said, the people within the community that you're in. Mm-hmm. To be able to have those hard conversations is love. It's choosing love, and it's choosing to give the truth of the matter versus trying to make someone feel okay in a moment when we're talking about an eternity, or we're talking about major decisions in life that will impact us further than this moment. And so I think it's, it's something that we all as leaders need to be able to embrace, both at home and outside the home, that we have to speak the truth in love.
Yes.
No matter what, no matter how uncomfortable it makes us feel.
Yeah. We have to identify what love is too. You get 1 Corinthians 13, it said love is patient. Love is kind. It's not jealous. It's not easily angry. It keeps no record of wrongdoing. It's not an area of that. It's area. And so looking and understanding what that is I think that's the area where we can agree and even disagree, but you can still operate through love.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the part two where I think I share it with you as well. And I'll share with you, Jake and Jen. Like I said, I think sometimes we have set in positions, and this is the thing that I've been in that place where I have been so passionate about getting my point across that I missed the love factor. Like it messed me up. Like it messed me up that there are so many things that I've hit in my heart and my mind, even related to come up, family, my kids.
Yeah.
Like I know I'm right.
That's the big
Like,
test.
I know I'm right. Like you ain't been there that long enough. Like I know I'm right. But what I did was like I robbed them from unfolding. And so I didn't realize that, you know what? God, you're expressing yourself through my son.
Yeah.
And because of that and listening where they are, if I listen to where they are, it begins to shift me to a way that I can parent better and not just make them do what I wanted them to do, train a child in a way that they should go in order they not to depart. That training is an active area to see that level of unfolding and where God would lead them to go, not where I wanted them to go. So that's been where God's really been dealing with my heart, because there's some things I think by now they should be doing because they grew up in this house. But the truth of the matter is there's a development. So I love the truth in love, because I think with so much going on now, even in the culture and society, like we could be missing some of those elements of me just trying to be. That's the way it was in my house. I don't know about y'all, but it was like when I goes on my, like you say you do what I say, not as I do type of situation. I love y'all parents if y'all watching. I appreciate it. I really do. But there's something that I think in the heart and mind that starts to develop and unfold from there. Did y'all want to jump in on that? Because I got a lot more questions for y'all. Get ready for Elevationships, where we go live with couples who are going after their inner tugging. What's good, fam? I'm Christian, and this is the moment you all have been waiting for. My beautiful wife, Lanisha, is joining me for co-host for Elevationships. Come on, somebody.
I love that idea of the truth in love. I think it's so powerful. I was reading, we've been reading a book by, I'm not sure who wrote it, but the Changes That Heal. And in the beginning, Henry Cloud. So he talks about truth. You can't have truth alone because then you're legalistic and it's so hard to out from. But then you can't have just love. You need the balance of truth and love together for people to actually grow. And then there's another ingredient called time, but all of
so good.
us to grow. When you have those things, it's this beautiful like watering that God does and causes people to grow. And so we can't just be coming at them with truth, and we can't just be coming at them with love, but we need the beauty of truth and love.
Ooh, yeah, what's the name of that book? Because we can put that on the link. What's the name of the book?
Changes That Heal by Henry Cloud.
It's phenomenal.
All right. Good.
So I actually have a story. And one day I was driving home, and my two kids were in the back, and they were bickering. And then, and I was like, "Hey guys, you guys need to stop." And they stopped for like 2 seconds, not even like past 2 seconds, and then they're fighting again. And I know that's escalating. Sometimes they're roughhousing, having a good time, my Jensen and Juliet, and then somebody gets hurt, and then they're and I said, "You guys need to stop." I start raising my voice. And then I don't remember what pushed me off, but I got super ticked. I mean, I was angry, and I was, yes, right now. You guys better stop completely. And, I go to the gas station. I was like, not another word, whatever. And I go back in the car, and they're fighting, and I lose it. I mean, I completely lose it.
I've been there.
I'm going off, and they stop. They're done. Now it's silence because Dad has reached his limit, and we get home. And I think Jensen had went up to his room, and I went up there for some reason, and he's sitting on the floor, and I can see that he's holding tears back. And I look at him, and I'm still in my moment, and I say to him, I said, "You got something to say?" I said, "Go ahead and say it. Say what you have to say." And then he said, it took like everything in him to say, Dad, what you said, I deserved. But there was a but in there. You didn't do it in love. And here because just God just uses your kids, and I fell to my knees and I repented, and it moved my heart, because it's crazy. And I know that a lot of the people out there that are watching this could experience this, where everybody gets this best version of us and our family gets the leftovers of us. And the reason why, because I've asked lots of people about this, is because of familiarity. And as Christians and followers, that cannot be an excuse. If there's no love, then it's like pointless. None of it, like, you don't have love, it's all of this is irrelevant. So I was just humbled, and I'm not saying that I don't continue to fail, but I will never forget that and how God used that, because at that time I think Jensen might have been like 8 or 9, and you can learn a lot from these up and coming. I mean, and he hears that, right?
Absolutely.
We tell him about truth and grace and time and all of those things, and he's listening, and our kids are listening, and lots of people are watching, especially when we're following that we are under the microscope, and anything and everything we do will be a challenge to the word, for people that know the word and people that don't, people that live the word and people that don't. So I think it's just a beautiful illustration that God brought it back full circle.
Powerful. Love it. I love it. I love it. Let me go a little deeper far as the area of what we're talking about. If you're just joining us, first off, you can drop some mic drop moments, because when you hear something that really applies to your heart, your mind, and you think that it can be encouraging and empowering to other emerging leaders, you can put it in a comment section with the microphone emoji and icon pertaining to that. But also, you can go ahead and like this podcast, share it, and make sure that you subscribe to the Elevate It podcast. But far as if you're just joining us, pertaining to this area, and you've been moving forward within this, or you've been processing and hearing in and out, what we're even talking about here is just the aspect of, sometimes we can get so busy in life, and we see the things that are going on in life and in ministry and in business, where we've come to a place where it's like, hey, like, what about my family? What about me? And so I want to transition some of our conversation to really ask Jake and Jen, like, have you ever been in a place? I know now you clearly said Monday nights is my thing, but have you been in a place where, like, it wasn't always like that? Like, you didn't have a designated time or focus on family, or has it always been like that for you both?
So before we even got married, my mom actually said, hey, it's really important to pour into your marriage. And she said, on Friday, when you guys have kids, then, I'm happy to watch the kids to have date night. So that's all we've ever known, and if we don't have date night for one reason or another, then, we'll try to substitute a date out. But I mean, that's just always been part of our foundation.
Yeah, I even think for our kids, like we fight for it. Like it has to, like I think for me, the Bible is my standard. So the Bible is very clear on being balanced. And I've just seen, like, especially in our culture, like people just go and go and go. And I think it's such a huge detriment to, like, a lot of children that are being brought up. They're not having time with their family. They're not the TV's substituting that, or
or sports games. Like, that's not necessarily family time. Yes, you're watching, but I mean, it's, like, hey, guess what? I have to miss church because I'm going to a sports game. I'm not trying to condemn anyone, by all means, but at the same time, how am I interacting with my kid? Yes, I'm cheering them on, but there is lost time there. So we have to be very intentional about sitting with our kids, looking into their eyes. I mean, to the audience out there, when's the last time you looked in your kid's eyes? When's the last time you looked in your wife's eyes and you can actually see them and not have all this noise, not have electronics, not have something in the background or something hovering over you? Ask yourselves that.
And so raising them, like, you see their hearts, and we often downplay, and we allow culture to deal with their problems, or no answers at all. I know for me, I was raised in a home where I didn't ask questions. Like, the TV raised me. And so there was so many unfulfilled questions that I had, things about life I couldn't figure out. And so the only way that you will know what's in your children's heart is by sitting with them and being intentional. Even we're very intentional about dates with our children. Yesterday, I took my little 4-year, or she's almost 4, on a mommy-daughter date. And she loves it. She eats it up. And I ask her at her age, 3, almost 4, she'll be 4 February 15th. But I ask her, is your heart okay? And her little
Wow.
answer, you know, like, my heart's fine, Mom. But sometimes when you're mad at me, like, it hurts. Like, she said those words,
Wow.
you know, but
Wow.
her to talk to me. I'm teaching and searching my 11-year-old son. What's going on in school? What are you hearing about in school? Like, is there anything that's confusing to you? And you have to be intentional to have those conversations. But if you're so engulfed by everything, then you're not having those conversations, and we're not doing our job as training them and pouring into them. That's our job. That's our number one thing. And back to Mother Teresa's thing, you know, if we want to change the world, let's love our family.
Right.
And love everybody else and not our family. So to
Yeah.
answer your question, I don't think so. I think we fight for it. If it's starting to get a little off, I'm ready to reel it back in. Okay, we need to make sure, if we're not spending Saturday together because we're doing weddings, Sunday evening we're doing something together, you know.
Yeah.
It's clear.
So you
clear in the
always
word.
have had it. You've always have had it in your relationship.
I mean, yeah, like, I just feel like, again, if it's getting off, like we're doing too much, it's
Yeah.
you can ask him. I'm like, no, we need to be together as a family. You know,
Good.
like, we have to
Okay.
be. It's like Monday night we've done this, Tuesday night, or okay, now Thursday night we need to be together, eating together, talking together. Let's play games. Let's turn off the TV. There was one night we let our kids choose a different activity to do, so we're feeding
Yeah.
each of them, and
Yeah.
their love tanks get filled, you know. So yeah.
Well, how do you do? Well, I want to talk to so somebody's watching and they're listening, and it's not they're not accustomed to this. Like, this might be new for them, right? It's like, look, we haven't done that, but they're entrepreneurs, they're leaders. They could even be ministry leaders, right? Because some of us pertain to that level. Like, the church is taking all the time, or the business is taking all the time. Or I hear what you're saying. However, if I go and do this, then I'm not making money, or I'm not doing this and I'm doing that type of situation. So what would you say to somebody who listens to this? It sounds great, it sounds nice, but they don't even know where to start within it. All they're thinking and processing is that, you know what, I've worked so hard. I came from nothing. I worked this hard. I'm at this point in place now. Like, I know my family needs my time, but I also, whatever, need to pay the bills, do this or do that. Like, what would you say to them to start? Like, they don't know where to start. How would you have them start?
I think, like, I struggle with achieving. I am an achiever. So I could build a thing and get lost in it. Like, I could strive to make more money. I could strive to be better. I can do all of those things. And that is something that I struggle with. But I think that it's the intentionality, like the reminder constantly that my children that is what God put me here for. Like, and keep coming back to that, even if it's small windows. Maybe it's like, hey, a 30-minute trip to Dunkin' Donuts to get a donut with your child, and listen to them. Put that down. You have to be so intentional, and you have to discipline yourself. It doesn't need to be 4 hours, but in a car ride, instead of them being on their cell phone, or you know, whatever it is, say, hey, let me have a conversation. How's everything in your life? Or a 30-minute walk around the neighborhood. Just being intentional. It's not like spending 50 hours with your children, but seeing them, knowing them, being intentional, taking one night a week, and nothing replaces that one night a week. You know, it's intentionality. If
Love
it's
it.
an hour altogether, they will see that will impact them.
That's a mic drop. Thank you.
Yeah.
For starters, is being intentional about sitting with your spouse and writing down what the schedule looks like, right? So this is my all right, what can we replace? Because if not, we live in a house where later on we're marked as absentee parents, and it's the truth. I mean, there are some people that saying that she was raised by a television set. So there had to have been absentee parents like that. I don't want to look back on my life and when my kids were like, oh, remember daddy was always on his cell phone? Oh my gosh, like, even though it might be a joke, how painful the truth is to, you know, or hey, I drew a picture of dad and it's me looking at my phone. Like, look at everything right now, present, and we're in the same room. That's crazy and it's scary. And that,
Wow.
you know, that freaks me out to the point of like, all right, we have to be intentional. As Jennifer even mentioned, like, even if it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes to Dunkin' Donuts, the kids and I, we read the word in the morning, right? So we'll read a chapter. Right now, we started in Genesis, we're in Jeremiah now, and we'll go through it and then we'll talk about it. And then we'll say, hey, how can we apply this to our lives? How can we practice this? And if we miss a day, then we'll go back into it and read a few more, just depending on how the Holy Spirit leads us. But at the same time, intentional about it. You know, okay, we haven't done it in a while. We have to make this happen. So it might be overwhelming. So for all of those that may feel like failures, we all feel like failures at points, you know, maybe a few times a day. You're not a failure. get back up, look at it, be intentional, and make time and sacrifice it. And I promise you, you will not regret it.
I do want to say one more
Wow.
thing. Intentionality deals with the heart too. So
Okay.
even if you're perfect at it and your heart is good toward it, it's like, what does your heart love? Does my heart, I'm not trying to put condemnation, but we can put things are out of order often in our lives. Like our jobs are important. We have to make money, but so are our kids' hearts. And so just 30 minutes, like it's also important to me. I love you enough to see you and spend time with you and be together. So I think
Wow.
intentionality often is rooted is what's the most important to us. We're intentional about making that money, we're intentional about all the
Right.
other things, so
Right.
and knowing that you're not going to be perfect at it. There's times that things become overwhelming for us, and it might be put on the back burner for a week or two, but we come right back to it. And I want to encourage people
Wow.
that might feel overwhelmed. I don't want you to think you have to be perfect at it.
Yeah. You can reach out.
That's
I don't know how much information of ours is given out, but yeah, reach out, message us, whatever, and we're happy to just be there for you.
absolutely. We will definitely give you the opportunity to go ahead and share all your social media tags and everything else to go ahead and connect. Absolutely. Beautiful. Did you want to jump in on any of that? I seen you writing.
Now, I love the word intention because like Jake said, like we're not going to always get it perfect, but I think when our heart is intentional about something, when that is the motive of our heart, and like we've put things in place, like you said, like sitting down with your spouse or whoever you're running the household with, and deciding like this is what our week is going to look like, and this is the time we're committing to our family.
Yeah.
This is the time we're committing to each other. And now we're accountable to one another. So if something does get off, you have that person. And even our children, right? We let them know Tuesday is family night. So they've come to us. What are we doing for family night this week? Can I choose something this week? Or, I've been on the other side of that. Mom, I called your name 5 times, but you've been on your phone, or you're writing that email. You didn't hear me. And those words stick. And that reminds me, and I have to be more intentional, right?
Yeah.
So even like when they walk in the door from school, I'm learning to be more intentional. Put down whatever you're doing, or before they walk in, I know what time they get home. Let me stop what I'm doing now. So when they walk in, I can give them that attention. How was your day? What's going on with you? Even, for a few moments, because we have teenagers now. So their time for us is like limited. They take us in bite sizes now. But either way, them knowing that our intention is there, that we are genuinely concerned about where they are in life and where they are with God, and in purpose and how they're doing, and even their own friendships and relationships, like showing that genuine interest, I think is how we develop that trust and that circle of love within our households that goes all the way around, and it's not one-sided.
Yeah. I love it. If you're watching or listening, I want to pull out some things that you may be hearing. If you haven't taken the opportunity to write them down, which I think is really good, because we want you guys to leave with something that you can take with you. All right. So you keep hearing intentionality. So having intention, right? But if you also look at the area of intention, you also are going to hear and see the area of discipline. Even Jake was mentioning that as well, pertaining to like that discipline. He said, we read in the morning, we do this year. So you're intentional, but you also are setting the area of that discipline pertaining to that heart, and knowing that you're giving yourself space and grace. I'm hearing that through Jennifer and through Lanisha as well. Like, you don't have to necessarily be perfect, right? But you got to get started pertaining to these things as well. And if you look at the area of, you've been hearing as well in the area of the conversation, to pull those things out, I have like me, us, and we. Okay, so if you're writing this down, this might be something that might be helpful for you. So Christian, what do you mean by me? Like, when we believe here in the area of like When it's me, it's God within me. So we cooperate, right? Luke tells us that the kingdom of God is within. So we don't have just a God that's out there. We have a God that lives within us. Jesus says, I need to go ahead and go. So he'll send a helper that comes within you. So you have God within you. You're coded with God DNA. So when I have me time, it's me with God within, looking within, not focus on external. What's the us? Us is the marriage aspect. If you listen to Jake talk, he's like, look, I'm intentional. We got to have date night. We got to talk. We got to do different things like that. You listen to Jennifer, she's like the area of the family aspect. Like they all are needed. If we skip over me and God within time, or just deal with the area of us to try, we can kind of be in balance. And they talked about that. So just from the coaching perspective, the coach that I am, I wanted to pull out some meat for you guys to make sure that you're writing these things down, to sit with yourselves, to say, ask myself, how am I being self-aware of what God is doing in my heart and my mind? And how am I showing up in the area of my marriage? And how am I showing up for our family? Then we get up to the area of thinking about the business and the ministry and all those variations of different things. So hopefully that was helpful for you all. Time is fleeting. This is crazy. Like we could probably talk so much, but I do want to ask y'all, as we're starting to conclude, I want you to give your handles so we can go ahead and follow you in every aspect of what you're doing. But I also want to throw this out there so you can think about this as a closing comment. I want you to leave us with a word that we can take with us as we're moving forward. You've heard everything that we've been talking about, and there's some things in your heart, your mind, your spirit that would encourage Elevation Nation, the watchers, those who are viewing and listening, that they can take with them, whether it's something that is just from your spirit or something that is practical. Leave us with something that we can take with us to help us to really prioritize our family and spend that good quality time. But before we go there, could you please share with us some of your social handles and how we can follow you?
Well, Christian, I would love to do that, but I have to, it's burning in me. I have to say one more thing to this. There's another word we need to kind of put into play with this, is expectation. So like we need to set an expectation for our family and our children as well. So Lanisha, you were talking like sometimes you're like, I'm going to stop this email. Well, I've taught my kids, hey, if I'm in the middle of the email, because, you know, with this new generation, we're all home together, we're constant with each other. Like I have to work. So that's an expectation, or that's a boundary, right? So just because I'm typing or I'm doing something, it doesn't give you access to me all the time. So you know that the expectation is, so I'm typing, I have to finish what I'm doing, and then I will speak to you. You're important to me, but you don't have access at every single moment of the day. And it's super important to set that boundary, because I have to work and you have to work and people listening have to work. And our kids often think they have access to it at every moment. We've actually created a generation that feels like that. I have to remind them, hey, I'm in the middle of an email, but you're important and I want to hear what you have to say. So when they come home, you might see me in the middle of an email. You might see me on a text message. But I'm setting that expectation for them. So I think we have to do that as well. It's not a free for all, but there's boundaries and limitations in which we have to flow and operate to get all of the things done that we need to. So Instagram.
That's so good. Thank you.
Vinluan Photography, at Vinluan Photography. If you want to follow us there, if you like wedding photography tips and tricks and your bride to be, we'd love for you to follow us. We also have a house church. It's a Love Revival, at Love Revival House Church on Instagram there. I don't know if we have anything else as far as Instagram handles or any of those types of things, but you can follow us on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you, for you to reach out to us, any struggles you might be having. We love to walk people through those things as best as we can. So
yeah, we have our Facebooks too. If you see our names, it's find us, you'll see us, and feel free to add us, or if you have needing anything to navigate, ask questions. We're happy to help.
Awesome.
I love it. Well, beautiful. Do you have anything before they give us some closing words?
No, just thank you guys so much for your time and giving us these words of wisdom. I'm taking notes, not just for the show, but for myself as well. So I appreciate it.
Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
Jake and Jen, you have it. Leave us with something that that we can take throughout the week.
I think number one, intentionality, and set those expectations, and just start and knowing your family is important. You know, God gave them to you. They're the most important, especially for that next generation. Your job will pass away, but your family, you want to instill the best into them. So.
So for me, I would just say that it says it in the word that your family is your first ministry. And for those, there's different people on here, but like family is important. You might not have had the best upbringing, but that's on you to change that. You know, you can change it, the trajectory for your family. There's something called generational curse. Whether you believe in it or not, you do some research on it, and you are the one that can change the trajectory. It doesn't matter necessarily what happened in the past. Yes, it does to an extent, but you can change that. So I would say focus on your family. I know I've heard of that before, but also at the same time, I was like, oh yeah, I love that place. But also, and I know you guys have heard this before, but everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Let's not even work on part 2 and 3 of that. Let's just work on everyone should be quick to listen. May I hear your heart? May I hear your heart, my wife? I don't need to hear 2 and 3 because I haven't even got 1 down yet. So why am I focused on trying to get 2 and 3 down? What happens sometimes when we're listening, it's like double Dutch, right? Like I'm trying to jump in. So quick to listen, slow to speak, but like slow to speak might be 2 seconds, and that's not long enough. Sometimes we have to sit in it after I've heard your heart to separate my emotion. And that line, this is the line that I'm going to leave you guys with, is state fact and subtract emotion. You know, like when they're having these conversations, like take the emotion out of it, because it's not necessarily about you when they're sharing. Your kids, your wife, right? They want you to hear their heart, and they're letting you in a safe place. And that place will only be safe if you cultivate it. At some point, those hearts will harden against you if you don't keep it safe.
Yeah.
Wow.
We could do a part 2 soon.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. No, seriously. Thank you.
Yeah.
We honor your time as well, but we appreciate all that you shared. Please like, subscribe, take notes, go back, listen to this again, and just continue to have an amazing week. They left so much for us. So please eat it all up. All right. So Elevation Nation, we will see you next week. And Jake and Jen, we will talk to you soon as well.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Now, don't forget to like, subscribe, and make a financial commitment to support us on Patreon. The link is in the description.